You're listening to Crushing Club Marketing, a podcast for progressive club leaders ready to increase their club's revenue. The time for change begins right now. Innovation, creativity, and teamwork are three attributes that Dave Porter and his team at Greystone Golf and Country Club possessed when confronting the uncertainty of COVID-19 in the spring of 2020. Porter and his team were already out-of-the-box thinkers, so for as jarring as the pandemic was and has been, Porter's team had a solid foundation when the crisis started. What's more, and most important, he had a trusting relationship with his club president and board of directors. Well, thanks for joining us. Our guest in this episode is Dave Porter, who's the general manager at Greystone Golf and Country Club in Birmingham, Alabama. Now, Greystone is a private club in a gated community, 36 holes of golf. It's full-on country club, 2 pools, magnificent property. In fact, each 18-hole course has its own clubhouse, and the courses are totally different. And it's like getting 2 clubs in one. A spectacular piece of property. There are about 850 members at Greystone, and back in 2020, making sure the members and staff stay healthy, especially in the beginning, it was a scary time, and it was a top priority for Dave Porter and his staff. And into 2021, it continues to be a top priority. At the same time, if you go back into 2020, and even now, staying compliant with the mandates from the state and the governor, it's been critical through this whole pandemic. And so the challenge that Dave Porter and his team had in 2020 was trying to figure out how to work within the parameters of the pandemic, and yet also maintain the club's extraordinary culture and find ways to elevate the member experience. And we talked to Dave about that in this episode. And the one thing is that if you're a club leader, you know this, is that it's one thing to be creative. And there's so many creative staffs out there and people that are contributing. But without a really strong relationship with the board of directors, with the club president, there's only so much you could do. And Dave has been fortunate to have a very strong relationship with both. And without that relationship, he acknowledges the fact that it would have been very difficult to endure what they did last year, and working together going into 2021 will also be extremely important. And I should tell you that my interview with Dave was actually recorded in November of 2020. So keep in mind, at that point, the vaccine had not been introduced, the election had not taken place. So at the time, there's still quite a bit of uncertainty and a lot of speculation about what this year would look like. Now, I also need to mention, in full disclosure, that Greystone is a client of Storyteller Media and Communications. So just want to get that out there so you know the situation. Here's my conversation with Dave Porter from Greystone. Dave, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Ed. I'm so excited to be with you. Looking forward to talking.
Awesome. For those who are not familiar with Greystone Golf and Country Club, how would you describe your club and the culture of Greystone?
It's always a fun one for me to describe because I've worked at a few different clubs throughout my career, and this one's definitely unique. I would say that we're always focused on the fun, the casual, but yet professional environment. We're trying to create a culture where we're innovative and kind of following that book that I've read in my career, differentiate or die. There's no scorecard necessarily other than things like the Platinum Club list. And so we just want our members to feel like they're at the best club, that they made the right decision, and they feel value every day. So innovation is key for us, creativity. It's a warm, fun environment. Definitely nothing pretentious about it.
Yeah, for sure. That's awesome. Let's so what I was hoping we could do is I'd love to go back to the start of COVID, and if you go back into March or whenever you first started thinking about how it might have an impact of the club, I'd love to get your thoughts on kind of how you initially reacted and what was, as a general manager with head count, a large membership. A lot of people are looking to you for direction. Do you recall those early days and what was going through your mind when this all started to unfold?
It's a great question because it was kind of a strange feeling when I look back on it, because you're just taking it day by day, hour by hour, hit by hit, so to speak. And Our number one focus was follow what the government's telling us to do and keep the employees safe, because the members being safe was going to start with the employees, and what the regulations were going to be. So that wasn't so fun and sexy at the beginning. It was just, let's do what we're told to do. This is new for all of us. Make sure, we're understanding all the protocol with protection equipment and what they're forcing us to do versus what else can we do to make it even better. So it was kind of the beginning, and then it evolved from there. The first week or so was just that, like, okay, they're shutting down restaurants to only do takeout. They're going to allow golf, but you have to wear a mask. So we took it a step further and got everybody as single riders. So things like that in the early days was just, how can we continue to operate? That I think it was March 13th. I remember to probably, I'd say toward the end of March, those 2 weeks, a lot got accomplished from the standpoint of making sure we had all our protocols in place. Employees getting their temperature checked when they walked in, making sure all employees had masks, all the appropriate things. But then we're like, okay, this is going to be going on for a while. We better start getting creative.
Yeah. Well, so let me jump in at that point, because you are a club that has, a lot of clubs have great amenities and services, and they talk about that. But Greystone is known for, and you've created a club that has got a lot of non-traditional amenities. I mean, you guys do, you are so engaged with the community that you're located in. Can you just talk a little bit about how you as a club approach that? Because it is unique with some of the things you do for your members.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things that we do already are unique. And I mean, there's a lot of great clubs and creative clubs out there. And I aspire to always be as close to chasing the best. But for us, it's kind of just worrying about our own identity. And so we have some cool things already. Like, for example, we have an indoor batting cage, in the off season, when members want to come out and with their son or daughter and hit, or we have someone that teaches lessons. We have we have a dual range. So at the back of the small end of the range, we have a pitching mound that we had our AAA team here come build, to make sure that people could do lessons up there as well. So just trying to reach out and understand that we're in the, we already do things like pizza delivery. We do lawn care service for the members that are residents in the gates. So for us, this, things that are unnatural services maybe to other clubs because they're not in a gated community. For us to push the boundaries on a regular basis and make this more about lifestyle. There's plenty of clubs that do the things we're doing, but not as many that do not. There's more that don't do what we do.
So I was just going to say, you and your members are accustomed to creative thinking, to doing things a little bit differently, to adding value to the member experience for sure. And when you started to face, the early days of COVID and some of the restrictions that you guys were seeing, what were the things that you guys did right away as far as just saying, gosh, how do we continue this member experience at the level that we're accustomed to?
Right. No, that's an excellent question. That's where it got fun, even though it's, a tragic, scary pandemic for all of us. But if you're going to if you're lucky enough to still be working, and have your members out here, let's try to make it fun. So what we did is, number one was easy, was we already do 2 nights a week where we do what we call grab and go. So family style meals. We do that on a regular basis. So we just went 7 days a week with it. So we had the family style meals, pull up to the front. We had a podium out there, greet you. And then while you pull up, we had a full bar. We had it set up that each night there was a specialty cocktail art. So you had all the miniatures and everything you needed to make those cocktails. But then also we had a whole bar there of full bottle alcohol, wine, and beer that they could buy as a, just an add-on as they came up, because it was hard. Liquor stores weren't even open, or people were having a hard time to get out and go do those things. So it was definitely stressful. So people wanted to have a drink. So that was the easy one. And then take out from the restaurant, that was easy. I'm sure all clubs were doing these type of things. And then we started to push the food and beverage a little bit further, where we're doing like the Blue Apron box to go, where you prepare the meal, but we had everything all prepped for you. And we would send an email to those people that purchased it, and we would have a video from the chef on how to cook it instead of having to follow written directions. So you could cook along with him whenever you were ready. People really enjoyed that. We did some takeout ice cream parties for the families. So instead of having to go to the store and buy, 15 toppings in big bags, we'd give you the portion for 4 people, the ice cream, the chocolates, or everything you would need, and put it in a nice, beautiful case for them to take. So everything related to food and beverage like that was kind of easy to keep adding on. And then we pushed it a little further in the food and beverage area, where we actually did wine tasting every week, where we gave them 2 bottles of wine. We had one of our reps zoom in, and they would taste with them, and then they had those bottles for the rest of the night, or as long as they wanted to drink them. We also did, from a food and beverage standpoint, we did some wine dinners. This was when we're still in complete shutdown and people can't come to the club to eat, where we delivered the full wine dinner meal and all the wines for a 4-course wine dinner. And our chef, and if we had a wine maker from a winery, say in California, they would zoom in, and the chef would zoom in, and every member would zoom in from their house, and they had their meal that we delivered to their house. So they'd have a full wine dinner, like the experience they'd have at the club. Pretty close, obviously, because we're not serving them, but.
Yeah. And so, you fully embrace the technology and the idea of virtual with the cooking classes and the wine dinner and stuff like that. How did the members respond? I mean, was it kind of like, oh yeah, well, that's just what they do? Or were they kind of blown away by the way you guys adapted?
I think they were really impressed. And I've never, my political stock went up for sure. And people were appreciating that we kept striving and didn't just use it as, you could have easily not done as much and said, all right, this is a tough time for everybody. But, we did things every single day. We did every department head did something related to what they might be good at in a Facebook Live or a Zoom. So it could be floral arranging. It could have been planting your own herb garden from our lawn care guy. It was all kinds of stuff. We did the cocktail of the day. We had happy hour with everyone, where our restaurant manager would make a drink for everyone. So there was always something going. We did virtual bingo, virtual trivia, where people could come in at 6:00 at night on the Zoom and do that. And then we would deliver the cards to their house. So we don't want everybody coming up here. We would deliver the cards to their house. Then we would bring them the gift card after, or mail it if they won. So we just kept keeping everybody engaged with those kind of things. We did a scavenger hunt around the community, where they just had to email us the pictures that they did those things so they could get out and do some fun things as a family. We started to evolve pretty good too after the creativity got going, where actually our president had this idea. She had a great idea to do let people go for a ride on the golf course when it's closed.
Oh, right.
So because maybe social members or spouses of golfers haven't seen the course. So we have 2 courses. So we're fortunate that when one of them was closed, we did what we called Sunset Cruise. So we scheduled it toward sunset time and had a 2-hour period. People come up, they'd make a reservation so we could keep the social distancing. And we would have a bar out there that give them a complimentary drink. They could buy more if they like. And then they would go cruise around the golf course for an hour and see it from a different setting and at a beautiful time of day. And people really appreciate just a chance to get out and do something creative.
Such a great idea. And you're still doing the Sunset Cruises now, or you have one more, I think. At this point, we're right now in mid-November is the point of this recording, but you've got one more. Is that right?
Yes, sir. It was so popular that once we kind of got back to full operating the end of June, beginning of July, we still did it once a month for July, August, September, October, November, and still to this day, we have our last one next week. And here in Alabama, it's still, beautiful, but sunset obviously is earlier, but they'll come out 4 to 6. And we still have, I think right now we already have 45 people signed up. But at the peak of this, when we were doing it once a week, because we did it once a week for about 8 to 10 weeks, there were 150 people every single time.
Holy cow. That's terrific. See, it's such great member engagement. The one thing that I'm interested in, especially from a general manager perspective and a leadership perspective, is, going back to that time, a lot of people were nervous. A lot of people lost their jobs. How did you keep your staff engaged to the point that they were still able to brainstorm great ideas and also feel really committed to the membership? I mean, at a time where there was so much fear and uncertainty out there, what did you do in that time?
I mean, I think the most important thing for me was, how many employees can I keep working and keep them safe? And how many members can I keep without leaving the club, and making sure they feel like they're getting value and that we try, because those memories are going to be in their mind because, it's like, and I hate to compare it, but 9/11, where were you? Everyone knows where they were when, the space shuttle, everyone knows where they were. I think you're going to remember, not necessarily one day, but during that period of time, what was going on. And if people can remember back 10 years later that the club kind of saved me from all this horribleness, I felt a little safer and isolated at the club, and had so much fun, and they did such a great job. That's going to be a lasting thing. So I tried to empower the staff to say, hey, you have a direct impact on these members this way in their lives. It's going to help you keep your mind off of the bad things that's going on in your lives. And I'm here to support you to get you through those things. But also, let's look at our employees. We have 200 employees. How many can we keep working? We literally only had to lay off 20 employees. And a lot of them, we gave them a choice. Some of them chose, and they didn't. Some weren't laid off because they chose not to be here when we had work for them. So the creativity point was, how many more people can we, if we do this, keep them working? You and I talked offline about the one other fun idea we did where we had the mobile golf shop.
Oh, right.
So we had a member with a Mercedes dealership, and he allowed us for 2 months to have a Sprinter van for no charge to try to help out. And so we refitted the back of that, not permanently. And members would call, make an appointment. We would put in the stuff that we know they like, their sizes, and then they could go shop because they weren't allowed in the golf shop or other stores in the world. And some people don't want to just shop on Amazon or online. So we employed another person that way.
Yeah.
We now could keep somebody working to drive that van and service it.
Yeah. It's just such a unique idea. And to be able to, not only provide that service, but you're also selling stuff, which is good, is good. I know a lot of golf shops, as soon as it started, people weren't sure if they could go in when someone else is in the golf shop. You've got some space in both your golf shops, but still it's not like walking into a Golf Galaxy or something like that. And yet, there are some interesting considerations with that. Tell me what you did about communication, because I thought that was one of the things that that we've seen in our conversations, where there's been a lot of, everyone says that they tried to communicate as much as they could, but some clubs seem to do it more effectively than others. What was your position on communication with the members as far as keeping them abreast of what was going on? Was it more of a, only send it when you have new stuff, or was it a little bit more of a consistent type of approach?
It was consistent. Actually, my president and I got together early. The first communication, was kind of a scary one, and we're all facing this, but then we got ourselves into a routine where it wasn't a stock letter, but every single week we sent a letter update, and we always put the important things, the new things kind of in the body of the letter, bulleted. Here's what's new this week, because this was more about business. This was like, what are we going to change? Okay, we're looking at starting to do, all right, there's no food service except for takeout, but you're playing golf. So we, when we decided to make a new idea there, we would put it in the letter. So the new idea was at each golf course, we put a grill outside with a tent and a cook, and had a 6-foot distance that the cook could go put from 3 feet away, go put it on a counter. A member would come up and get it. But we'd have beer for them and soda, but we'd grill 2 or 3 items for them. So my point is, something like that, if that was going to be an operational change, like, because we didn't know when it was going to, it's still not over, but we didn't know when the lockdown was going to end. So it was like, okay, this is important to put in the letter. And anytime the governor would change anything, people might have seen it themselves, but they don't know how it impacted us necessarily. So we would always change that. So once a week, we did a letter. I think it was like 16 I have in my files the other day. I was looking at, COVID-19 letter 1, and I have 16 of them. And we still do, we've done about quarterly now the last 3 months. And one of the other things we did is twice a week, we still send an email about the fun stuff.
Right.
So we had one email like every 3 days about, don't forget these virtual events. So we do one for all the virtual events, and then all the things that they could do themselves. So like Sunset Cruise or the mobile golf shop.
Yeah. And Dave, just for context, what percentage of your members are living within the community as opposed to those who come from outside?
It's about 65 to 70% live inside the gates.
Okay.
35% outside the gates. It kind of fluctuates a little bit each year, but we have our penetration inside the gates here. We have 1,400 homes, and 500 of the residents are members. It's not a mandatory membership. So,
Yeah.
some of these things that we've done really have actually helped us grow membership inside the gates. We've tried to be as creative over the last decade as we can to get people here. And why wouldn't you want to be a member? But those people started finding out, wow, golf's an outlet, or if I'm not going to be a golf member, I could be a social member and use all these things.
No doubt. I mean, and if you're on the fence about joining or not, and you get into this stretch, I mean, I know a lot of families were opting in to say, "Hey, this is great family time, place to enjoy time with friends and family." It was awesome. Hey, let's talk about the. I'm just interested about the governance side of this, because I'd imagine these crisis times, especially a sustained crisis like this, if you've got a weak governance model or a good governance model that just isn't really adhered to, these kind of situations, I'd imagine, could really be devastating for a club if you don't have your act together with that. And it sounds like you were obviously given a situation, or you are not given, but you are in a situation where you've got a lot of latitude to make decisions and not having to go to the board for every single move you're making. Is that right?
It is. I'm very fortunate. I mean, those managers or board members that might be listening to our discussion today at some point, I want them to know I've worked in very traditional clubs, 100-year-old clubs in the North Shore of Chicago with, a very traditional governance model, even though, you grow with trust of getting more latitude. Here, I'm very fortunate. It fits my style perfectly that they give me an incredible latitude to run the club, all the operations, and the board puts up the guardrails and sets the policy, but they really give me latitude to run within my spending authority and whatever I need to do. Now, during the pandemic, I really, I would always partner with the president on a lot of things, but the way we function here is kind of the whole board of 9 is I report to. I know that's how it is in all clubs, but a lot of times the president takes a point of, they're really in charge, so to speak. And our president here, they're the liaison between me and the board. And we worked great together during all this. She's a fantastic woman. She did a great job. And we worked hard on this together. So the board kind of let us take the lead on it. And so I'd work on the letters that we would communicate, and she would review them, would send those out. But then all the ideas, she was okay with me I'd share all the ideas with the board as an FYI. Like, here's everything we're going to do this week coming up. If something gives you heartburn because it's a little out there, I didn't know how they'd react to mobile golf shop. I didn't know how they'd react to concert, whatever it might be. So I just like to give them a heads up if that was going to give them heartburn, because I don't know. Sometimes you kind of cross the line where, we're going through a global pandemic and I'm trying to create fun. So,
Right.
you have to be borderline sensitive there too. So when I say all these things that we did, we unveiled them over that, shutdown period of 8-10 weeks where, we were sensitive to everything, and we just kind of reeled it out as people were getting more stir crazy. But
Go ahead.
they gave me great latitude, and I appreciate them very much. I'm fortunate that I get that every day. And we have that good relationship.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but I'm just wondering, like, how did that relationship change at all, if at all, once the pandemic really hit? I mean, that relationship with the board, I mean, and having that latitude, and did they give you, was there more freedom? Was there less? I mean, did you want their support a little bit more rather than less? I mean, how did that, just knowing the way you lead and your style and your history with the club, how did that change?
It was as great as they are and have been to me my whole time here. It was definitely a little bit more micro, because everybody was so nervous.
Yeah.
And so I just had to be patient about it. Probably in the beginning, I was a little frustrated because, I haven't been through this crisis before, but I've been through them with, different things with tornadoes and coming through in Chicago, or hurricanes in South Carolina, and people's reaction after 9/11, working in Philadelphia, so close to New York. I'm not saying they're anything like this scale, but I get it, how people react. And I think I could have been fine dealing with all of it with just giving them heads up. But in the beginning, everybody was so nervous. We had a couple of special board meetings, and everybody got together and talked about it. And we came out with our plan of how we were going to go forward, that all the communication would come from the president, and I would draft it. She'd review it. We'd send it to the whole board and say, you had 24 hours in case you have an issue with it. You're going to send it out to the members on, every Friday or whatever day it is. And so we all made an agreement there. And it's been hard to get them all eased back a little bit, but they're kind of happy to ease back because, everybody's a little more comfortable, especially in Alabama, than a lot of other parts of the country. With the pandemic.
Yeah, and I got to believe that the health of your relationship going into this is one of the things that helped you move through the pandemic so well. It's kind of like one of the things my wife and I always talk about is the idea that if you have kind of a rocky marriage going into this, you're really hosed. So you're spending every single second of every day. But in the same way, if you don't have that great relationship between general manager, and I'm not just saying at Greystone, but any club, between the general manager and the board, something like this really just amplifies it, doesn't it?
I would totally agree with you. I mean, I'm so fortunate. I have a great board. I have, this is my sixth board since I've been here, and they're fantastic. They all appreciate what the staff does. They all support me. Like I said, we're open. I mean, I'm not a renegade, but they don't really question what I'm doing unless it's something that I need their approval for. Yeah. I always give them the heads up on things. I would never just go flip something upside down without them knowing, but they know now to trust me that what we do here is different than a lot of clubs about the amount of things we throw at the wall and see what will stick, because it goes back to that penetration that you and I are talking about in the community, where if we want to get all 1,400 residents to be members, and other than changing the covenants that they have to be, the way to get them is to try to continue to be innovative and creative and try to get them jealous enough that they want those services. They see the pizza getting delivered next door, they're cutting their lawn next door, come up here and get their car washed, go play golf, go to the fitness center, have dinner, and then all the things we did during COVID that they didn't get to participate in. They're sitting there saying, all right, for $300 a month to be a social member, maybe this would be worth it for me. And we're starting to get some of that now. So I think that my point is that the board's always been so supportive because they know we need probably 100 more regular members, and we're really like teenagers in the club business, because we're going to be 30 years old next year, and for the first 20 or 18 years it was the developer. So the club has only owned the club for 12 years, and they're still learning how to do it. So I'm very appreciative that they've let me come in and help them learn how to do it, and so that's why they've seen the success we've had. They had never balanced the budget until 4 years ago. We've balanced it for 4 years straight, and building reserves. So I think that trust comes in with performance. There's some automatic trust when you hire somebody, but then if it doesn't work out after 6 months or a year, you're starting to get a little skittish. But
for sure,
we think we've worked a good relationship to proven track record. I definitely make mistakes, but overall, I think they appreciate the staff's pushed and challenged and excited about what we do.
Well, in the crazy part of this is it's not like this is all behind us. It's in some ways we feel like we're in the middle innings of a 9-inning game here. But with that said, your thoughts as you turn the corner into a new year with, no end really in sight, maybe a vaccination, coming up here, but how do you see 2021? How would you prepare for that? And what would you, given what you've learned to this point, what are you getting ready for as we get into the next year here?
It's a great question, because what we've done, like the way we planned our budget, is that we're going to be going full speed, because our golf rounds were up 20%, during this year.
Yeah.
So we go a little conservative and put them up 10% over the, versus 20, in the budget.
So you think you're going to go up 30% compared?
No, I'm sorry. We scaled it back to, our year-end results that we're projecting will be 20%. So we cut that back by 10 and use that as our budget for 2021 for cart fees as an example. Mm-hmm. So we think golf's still going to be super vibrant, and a lot more people working from home. So what we're actually headed into this, that for December, January, February, March, we're going to kind of invest more creativity, all the things that worked during the shutdown period, and then add more to keep people, because the winter time, it could get worse, or people are just going to be scared to come out because they can't sit outside, or for dinner, or they, it's not real good golfing weather. So we're going to create more virtual events, more creative events. For example, I'm sure you've seen, and a lot of club managers have seen these temporary or plastic igloos.
Oh yeah,
They're using in New York for dinner and stuff outside. We're going to purchase some of those, put them on our back patio, try to convince those people to come out that, if they don't want to eat inside, at least you're outside in your own private little pod. Get them all lit up and beautiful and romantic, and hopefully we'll have big reservations for those. So we're trying to continue to think, okay, what can we do immediately to make sure that we're ahead of creativity and continuing to get people out here. So we're working a lot of those projects right now to get them unveiled in January. So we have them for the winter, but also we're heightening our awareness on what we can do to get people excited about coming out, because if it doesn't go away for a long time, from a standpoint, what I mean by that is golf outings, weddings, things like that. We did host them this year, but it was a lot of trial and error as far as being perfect. And the hardest part of it all is convincing the guests to be protective.
Yeah.
We put 2 masks in every golf cart. We have a shield that rolls down between both golfers, and we have 2 bottles of sanitizer in there. But if they come out sick and they're not wearing their mask when they're dining after golf, then it's hard to enforce and police that, especially at a wedding. It's not people just don't feel cool dancing on the dance floor with their mask on, I guess. So.
I can't imagine why. Not to mention, it's probably hard to breathe. But how do you shift your approach to events? With outside events and what you want to attract that way. I mean, in some of the conversations I've had, in fact, in the previous episode with Joe Livingood from Interlochen in the Twin Cities, he was just talking about how they stopped even really, in many ways, just stopped relying on that revenue and said, let's just really build the member experience and rely on that and try to make sure our members are engaged and using the club.
That's a great point. Unfortunately for us, we're just not able to do it because we don't have, for 36 holes, right, where both golf, we have 2 clubhouses where it's 5 miles apart. And when we took over from the developer, we didn't have enough golf members to support that. So that's why we've always tried to take that different approach where, the foundation, the basics need to be right with service and food and golf course conditions, et cetera. But after that, we need to be innovative, or we're going to lose in this market, because the person that doesn't live in the gates doesn't know about us. It's, it'd be so hard to get that word out. If you were going to do it through media other than social media, it'd be hundreds of thousands to get the word out properly. So we have to do it by allowing these golf outings in and doing it safely, and relying on them financially. And, we have a PGA Champions Tour event here that we rely on as well. And that got canceled this year. So that was a tough thing for us to deal with, but we're already talking with them and having conversations about next year that, they will be going forward, because now they've learned how to deal with the pandemic and how to have their precautions in place. So whether there's fans or not, I don't know how far they'll go with that, but at least they've verbally committed to having the event. So we have to push for those events and get creative about how we can host them. So for example, we have a huge back patio, we can tent it, and that'll definitely push the members into another area for dining those nights that we have a wedding or something large. But as long as we can do it outside, have the proper spacing, the proper protection, we need to try to work on it. But simultaneously, just like Interlochen, we're focused on the member experience big time, because we need to retain and grow. And then also the other side, we need that other ancillary revenue right now. We're fortunate from that standpoint is that when they didn't switch from the developer, we are a for-profit organization. So, we can take all those outside events, and the board supports it as long as it doesn't interrupt the members to an extent. And definitely during these times, they're okay with it.
Yeah. What are the wild cards, do you think, when you look at this upcoming year, and what makes you nervous, and what do you do to try to, prevent the worst case scenario?
I mean, I think the biggest concern for us here in Alabama is, economy. Through the presidential election, when you have a predominant Republican state and probably a predominant Republican membership, it puts them into a nervous place, whether it's founded or not. I mean, I don't want to talk politics. I just want to share that concerns me, because, that's connects to my livelihood, my team's livelihood. If people start panicking over the national economy and they say, all right, the first thing that goes the club, then that's not good. So that scares me a little bit. Not that I have any inside data on the world, but it scares me because I worked in other places where, when you go through, we all saw what happened in 08, 09, and I lived through that. And that was a tough one.
Yeah.
But that was not, I worked in a place where it was mandatory membership inside a gated community. So that helped a little bit. The other thing that concerns me or that I look out for is are we going to go back? Is there going to be such a spike that our government, at least in the state level, is going to go back to mandatory lockdown? That 8-week lockdown period that we had where you could only do takeout food was devastating to us, even though we got creative and all those things, but also the outside community here. It really hurt a lot of the restaurants, I'm sure in every city. It hurt a lot of the stores, and just I hate to see that because some of those, that connects to a lot of our members too. Those
sure.
People that own businesses that are getting hurt, and then are they going to end up leaving the club? So then I know that impacts my employees. If all of a sudden you lose 20 members, you have to take in a big adjustment to your budget and try to recoup that, whether you're tightening up on services or lowering people's pay or cutting positions. It just scares me. Just because we're on a path now coming out of this, that we're better than we were when we went into it. We're We're net positive 25 golf members after this.
Wow.
So that's, a crazy thing. And then I don't, if there's a silver lining, which is silly because the pandemic's devastating to the whole world, but I don't want to see us go backwards after that. I think that another 8, 10, 12-week lockdown would really be – it would be easy for us as a staff to perform because we know what it was like and we can add more things and make it more exciting. But I think it would just I think everybody's just kind of worn out, especially I can't even imagine what they're going up in the northern states.
Yeah. I was going to ask you that. How is it different, do you think, for you being in Birmingham, Alabama? Is it, and maybe you can't answer this, but is it easier or is it harder, do you think, than say the clubs in the north where they're shutting down for the winter and then they're going to have to reopen again, or, a lot of them stay open, but they're going to have to, the outdoor activities begin again in the spring, but in the winter, there's not a whole lot going on for some of these clubs.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's being that I have worked in the north, so I'm not just throwing, stones at it. And I have so much respect for those managers. I think if you have a solid membership base, like you're in a 100-year-old club that's legacy type club and you have a wait list and silly because the pandemic's devastating to the whole world, but I don't want to see us go backwards after that. I think that another 8, 10, 12-week lockdown would really be – it would be easy for us as a staff to perform because we know what it was like and we can add more things and make it more exciting. But I think it would just I think everybody's just kind of worn out. Especially I can't even imagine what they're going up in the northern states. Yeah.
I was going to ask you that. How is it different, do you think, for you being in Birmingham, Alabama? Is it, and maybe you can't answer this, but is it easier or is it harder, do you think, than say the clubs in the north where they're shutting down for the winter and then they're going to have to reopen again, or, a lot of them stay open, but they're going to have to, the outdoor activities begin again in the spring, but in the winter, there's not a whole lot going on for some of these clubs.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's being that I have worked in the north, so I'm not just throwing, stones at it. And I have so much respect for those managers. I think if you have a solid membership base, like you're in a 100-year-old club that's legacy type club and you have a wait list and we're going to try as hard as everybody and try to make it as great as we can.
Well, and I know it's a good community of club managers around the country and some good communication about what clubs are doing. So thanks so much for your time today, Dave. This it was fun catching up a little bit and also just hearing more about what you've got going on at Greystone.
Absolutely. I think that you should get out of the north and come down here to Birmingham and see us more.
We're working on that plan right now. Thank you for joining us. If you find this podcast helpful, go ahead and subscribe. What do you got to lose? We look forward to our conversations this year. And remember, keep crushing your club marketing.